Hi there, Janet Fritz here for Galaxy Girl Creations. Welcome to my channel. Today I am scrap lifting Chelsea Tower, and she did this amazing, beautiful layout with all these bright colors, some mixed media in the background. So I am going to scrap lift her. I actually did this as part of a telephone hop over at Paper Issues, and it was a lot of fun. It's the first time I've ever done a telephone hop with Paper Issues, and I wasn't quite sure what to expect, and I've done telephone hops before for the Secret Not Secret Kit Club, and we always do ours through YouTube, and you can watch the progression. Theirs, it kind of stays within their group, it seems, and so you just see the progression if you are involved in the hop or if you go and find the post about the hop. So that's all great and fine, and it was a lot of fun to use inspiration from someone that I don't know or haven't seen a lot of their work before, which was kind of cool. So I started with doing the mixed media on the background, much like Chelsea did, and I left in this bit of mixed media because I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about it. Usually I would just cut this part out because I didn't end up using this background at all. I have some foam board, and I've covered it with packing tape on one side so that any moisture doesn't go through my paper into the foam board. I want to kind of keep everything in the paper, if you will, and I like to tape my layouts down to it so that they don't warp. If I do this mixed media and then leave it overnight, everything shrinks right back down to a very flat paper, and it doesn't warp at all. So that's a little tip for you. And this is just plain old white cardstock. It's not anything special. It's not Marshmallow by Basil. It's not the Vicky Bouton paper. It's just plain old white cardstock, and it is gessoed. And the way I know it's gessoed is everything is moving around on top of the paper. You can see me blowing it around with my heat gun. If I tip my page, it'll run. So if you want to be able to work with your colors on top of your paper, gesso your paper first. That's like my biggest tip for you with gesso. Now I did roll my paper towel across it just to pick up a lot of that moisture because I wanted to go ahead and work with my next color, but it also picks up a lot of the pigment. So if you want to keep the brightness of that pigment, you need to just let it dry over time or use your heat gun. I was trying to make sure my green didn't spritz into the red up there, so that's why I had the paper towel there when I was spraying the green. But again, you can see everything kind of just pools on the top of the paper. The paper was gessoed days before, so it's completely dry. And there will still be a little bit of warping as you add more stuff to it because there's moisture involved, but if you let it sit, like I said, everything comes out nice and flat. So again, I left this in just so you can kind of see the difference. I don't end up using this for this particular layout. I will use it for another layout at another time, and hopefully maybe I'll video that as well. But I end up going with a different palette. These are all Heidi Swapp color shines, and I'm using kind of the darker green and the darker red. And what I end up doing is using the lighter colors. So I end up with a pink and then a light green and kind of like a butter yellow. In fact, the color might be called butter. So you're going to see that coming up here in just a moment as well. And you will see that everything kind of just soaks right into the papers. So that's when I decide I'm not really going to use that. I'm going to do something different. And I'm going to use the packaging technique. I don't have any gesso on this paper or anything. So everything's going to just absorb right into the paper, and you'll see that right off the bat. Nothing's moving around. If I pick up my paper, everything would stay right where it's at, and it's just soaked right in. So those are just the two differences between using gesso and not using gesso. The gesso paper, I had gessoed it in clear gesso by Art Basics, which is a Prima product. You can use white, you can use clear, they even make black. I tend to use clear because not all whites are the same white, and so I just use the clear because I know it's going to match pretty much. And you can use it with anything. You can use it over pattern paper or whatever. I do have white as well, but I typically use the clear. So now I am just sprinkling some of those darker colors that I used on the first layout over these nice soft muted colors, just to bring in a little bit of dimension and interest, but I didn't want it as bright as it was. And I am working on a layout for my Hawaii album for my husband and I went for our 25th wedding anniversary, so that's what I'm working on. And I'm using a combination of papers from Fifth and Monaco, Heidi Swap Art Walk, and Chasing Adventure from Jen Hadfield. And the photo I'm using is of my husband sitting across from me in the helicopter, because we did a helicopter tour, and so I wanted to capture that. He's really was really happy to do the helicopter tour. We were both kind of nervous. He's done a helicopter tour before and I have not, but he was really excited to take me on the helicopter tour because it's something that I had never done before, and so that was a lot of fun going and checking it out. The interesting thing is, on our helicopter tour, I had originally said, oh, let's do the one without the doors. And he was like, no, I don't think we're going to do that one. And it was a good thing because when we left, everything was beautiful. But as we were flying, a storm came in, like within that hour, and it was just pouring buckets by the time we landed. So we would have been drenched if we had done that tour. So it was a good thing we did the one with the doors on. So in Chelsea's layout, she had this stitched effect in between all of her hexagon pieces. And I don't know if she actually stitched it or if it's hand-drawn stitches or stamped or what. But I took the opportunity to just scrap lift that, and I just made little stitch marks with my pen. If you are not into like drawing on your layouts or doodling on your layouts, you could just simply, you know, distress ink the edges. I'm sorry about the blur there. My head is in the way and it's focusing on my head. Anyway, you could just use some distress ink and that would work as well. Either way. So I have this black and white stripe paper. This is from the Chasing Adventure collection, and I'm going to use that, and I really like the black and white stripes with all of these other colors. And on a layout like this, you don't need a ton of embellishments because the paper's doing a lot of the work for you, and it's already really interesting because there's so many patterns. The patterns are visible, they're not hidden in layers, and then the torn edges give it a little bit of visual interest as well, and of course the mixed media, it all helps. So there's not going to be a ton of embellishment on this, and that's totally okay with me. I have plenty of layouts that are just full of embellishments. So I decided I had to rip this yellow paper the opposite direction because I didn't want that white edge showing. So I do like that these ripped edges create some texture as well. I kind of ruffled them up a little bit, and that yellow paper does have it's a two-tone yellow with a lighter shade of yellow polka dot on it. So that adds a little bit of interest as well. And I always like stripes and polka dots go well together. And then I found a piece of black and white striped paper in my scrap bin. I think this is actually supposed to be in like one of those 6x8 binders, but it's in my scrap bin, so I just decided I'm going to use that, and I like how that drew the diagonal from the edges down into the photo, and actually the diagonals go in the same direction and everything, so that worked out perfectly. And then I'm going to add another layer of black just to make it pop even more. I didn't add any dimensional foam on this. My title is out of foam thickers, and so that adds some dimension. And then on the same foam thicker sheet, I'm going to use some of those sprigs that you see in the left-hand one there, and some of the hearts, and that's pretty much going to do it for the embellishments. I went really simple on this, and I really like how it came out. I also really like the inspiration piece, although the bright colors are totally my jam. This doesn't have as many bright colors. I went a little more muted, and that's okay. There's plenty of layouts in my album that will have a mix of these colors, and some are going to be a little more bright, and some are going to be a little more muted, and that's okay too. You know, because a lot of the collections you can have bright papers in part of it, but then you also have some more muted papers in other parts. And as long as you're happy mixing those things and finding a balance in that, I think that works out well. Now, I wanted to tell you about my hexagons there. I did use my digital die cutter to cut those out. They are at about 2.5 inches. My hexagon punch is not that big. So if you're interested in like recreating this layout, you would want something that's approximately 2.5 inches across to get the same dimensions that I have. So hopefully that helps you in case you ever decide to scrap lift this or do something similar. Now I really like these sprigs. I considered putting one down at the bottom, but then I changed my mind. I decided to keep everything up around the photograph, and then I do add a little bit of journaling just below that ampersand, and it says, "Just a few nerves as we prepare to take off on our heli tour. As the scenery came into view, we were awe-inspired." And it really was awe-inspiring. Everything was so green and lush and beautiful, and my husband, his prior helicopter tour was over the Grand Canyon, so very different topography and views, and I don't know, we both really enjoyed this, and we had a lot of fun. So that's pretty much going to do it. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave those down below. I'd really appreciate it if you'd like and subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. And if you are a subscriber, thank you so much for subscribing. And thank you so much for spending the time with me today. I really appreciate it. Stick around for the close-ups. They're coming up in just a moment. I will see you next time. Bye.